Hello, edgelords, it's your local Trash Panda Slayer here. Now, I've gained a bit of a reputation as a hater of pop music, which is true if you're talking about top 40 music from 2008 onwards. But I do feel the need to make one thing clear: any type of music, good or bad, has the right to exist. But whenever there's an obvious trend of a specific sound infecting the greater whole of popular music across the board, then I've definitely got a problem. That brings me to my least favorite time in pop music history, the mid to late 2010s. Now, I was in my teens during this period of time and was very angsty. Anyone who remembers my old videos will know that. And being angsty, I wanted angsty and angry music to listen to. Now, obviously there was angsty and angry music being made in the 2010s, it just didn't have any chart success. Which is a sharp contrast from the 2000s, where nu metal, emo, and butt rock metal had some mainstream chart success. That, of course, changed around 2008 and 9, where the modern pop sound had a very quick and sudden rise. Stuff like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, and Justin Bieber. And with that, rock music went through its sharpest decline in history. There's a lot of reasons for this: corporate reasons, economic reasons, even socio-political reasons as well. Now, I will say that I do have some nostalgia for early recession pop, due to being a kid around the time, but I will not lie when saying that it has shown its age and was somewhat of a tone-deaf style of music, displaying lavish and decadent lifestyles while our parents were looking for a second or even third job. It's to the point where I feel like it was largely manufactured as a way of sedating the youth. But I digress. By the mid to late 2010s, rock was at such a low point that many bands were attempting to adopt a pop sound in a failed attempt to regain chart success. Most of this was inspired by the pop group Imagine Dragons becoming the face of so-called rock music around 2013 or so. There are so many examples of rock-on pop in the 2010s, most of which absolutely sucked. Stuff such as High Hopes, Centuries, and Feel It Still. But one of the most infamous examples of this has to be Linkin Park's 2017 album, One More Light. Released in the dregs of Poptimist success, this album was a complete slap in the face to rock fans the world over, and a shining example of how awful the late 2010s were for music. Some people, on the other hand, do actually like this album, and praise it for exploring new sounds and pushing genre boundaries. Mike Shinoda would even tweet prior to this album's release that genre is dead. But is it really? Is genre dead? Well, even if you're not well rehearsed on music theory, your ears can easily tell the difference between metal and pop, between blues and country, and between electronica and folk music. Sure, you can mix and match genres, but at the end of the day, you're just creating a new subgenre, not ending the concept of genre as a whole. Postmodernism is a hell of a drug, folks. Also, I feel as if though Linkin Park were already a diverse enough band by that point. They had mixed metal, electronica, rap, and alt-rock together to fantastic results. In fact, they already had a softer album called 1,000 Suns, which, while divisive at the time, experimented with electronica and pop sounds without feeling like a complete sellout. Why did they want to make a full-blown pop album? From what I've read, this is what they wanted, and not them being held at gunpoint to make it. I don't know, maybe they had genre dysphoria. Jokes aside, I need to actually listen to this album for once. After all, it might actually be better than the haters say. The album starts off with Nobody Can Save Me. This track it's alright. There's obvious overtones of EDM and stomp clap hey in here, but thankfully it's nothing too irritating. But you do have to understand one simple fact here. LP's previous album, The Hunting Party, was a full-blown metal album practically. So going from that to this? Yeah, that's quite a juxtaposition. The second track is even weirder though, a collab with Pusha T titled Good Goodbye. which is your typical 2010s era pop rap song. I'm a bit too confused to properly rate this because do I rate it as a Linkin Park song or as a Pusha T song? Just such a strange thing to be hearing on a Linkin Park album.
Goodbye, good riddance. A period is after every sentence. Did my time with my cellmate. Maxed out, so now we finished. Every day was like a hell day. Every night was like a hailstorm. Took her back to my tinted window, showing now she in rare form.
I've heard far worse, and the trap elements are pretty mild for the time, but this is not the kind of stuff I'm looking for in a Linkin Park album. Next up is Talking to Myself, a mixture of pop rock and electropop that's actually not too bad. I really like the synths on here, and it has a very catchy chorus. Of course, this song sounds a lot more like One Republic than Linkin Park, which is the main problem I have so far. I keep having to remind myself that this is a Linkin Park album. The signature LP sound so far is barely present here, replaced with pastiches of other electropop songs of the 2010s. Track 4, Battle Symphony, straight up sounds like an Imagine Dragons song. Everything from the formulaic, overproduced sound to the inspirational lyrics. Linkin Park had their own signature style from day one. Even when they did try experimenting with other sounds on Minutes to Midnight and 1,000 Suns, it still had that signature Linkin Park vibe to it. This album, on the other hand, is seemingly trying to rip off One Republic and Imagine Dragons, two of the defining pop rock groups of the 2010s. Track 5, Invisible, features Mike Shinoda on vocals, and it straight up sounds like something from an iPhone commercial. I mean, just take a listen to this.
I won't let you feel that now.
Now we get to one of the big hits off of this album, Heavy, featuring Kiara, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is the track that got the band a lot of hate around this album's release. I mean, it's titled Heavy, and yet is anything but that.
I'm holding on. Why is everything so heavy? Holding on. So much more than I can carry.
This is near indistinguishable from the crap that Moron 5 was making at the time. And you may have noticed that I have compared this album to a lot of other pop rock groups from the 2010s. And that's because, well, this album is such an obvious attempt at cashing in on that Imagine Dragons and Maroon 5 style. And that coming from Linkin Park, a band with a unique identity, that's just sad. Whatever you want to say about Imagine Dragons, that band never really had any edge or much of an identity. They were always a very poppy group tailor-made to be played in car commercials. What Linkin Park is pulling on this album is just pure sell-out crap, and that's just sad. Track 7, Sorry for Now. Yeah, y'all should be saying sorry for making this god-awful song. This one features trap beats and these really irritating chipmunked vocal samples. Seriously, that's gotta be one of my least favorite trends of late 2010s EDM. How anyone can find those chipmunk vocals appealing is beyond me. Halfway Right isn't much better, also featuring trap beats and sounding very corporate. Fun fact, this is actually the least streamed song on this album on Spotify. And with good reason, because this is the dictionary definition of unremarkable. Thankfully, the title track is the one song off of this album they put heart and soul into. It's an emotional soft ballad that really pulls at your heartstrings.
Who cares if one more light goes out in the sky of a million stars? It flickers, flickers. Who cares when someone's time runs out? If a moment is all we are.
This is by far the best song off of the album, and one that succeeds at a softer sound. The album does unfortunately end with a pathetic whimper, with a stomp clap hey song called Sharp Edges, which wouldn't feel out of place coming from one of the countless millennial hipster groups out there. So yeah, I did not enjoy this album. Outside of maybe 2 decent tracks and 1 good one, the rest is so blatantly corporate, I genuinely can't believe this is something the band actually wanted to do. I feel like whatever optimism and enthusiasm this band had for this album was from being gaslit. What makes this album very unfortunate and, dare I say, a bit depressing to listen to, was the fact that not long after its release, lead vocalist Chester Bennington would take his own life at age 41. There were so many rock star deaths in the mid to late 2010s, and this is one that hit me very hard, having grown up with Linkin Park's music. And I think most other rock fans can agree with me on that. His passing doesn't really make the album any better per se, but knowing that makes listening to this album somewhat of a somber experience. I just hate how this was the last album Chester Bennington sang on, since it's really not the best way to go out. But anyways, going by the official story of this being something that the band genuinely wanted to make, why would they want to make a pop album? Well, outside of them potentially being gaslit by the record company into thinking it was a good idea, I have another theory. This band was going through a midlife crisis. The band were all around 40 years old during the release of this album, and I guess in an attempt to feel young again, LP tried tapping into what the kids were listening to back in 2017. It doesn't help the fact that nu metal was largely reviled in the mid to late 2010s due to a combination of metal elitists and millennial hipsters, the latter group which I hate a lot more. So basically a combination of gaslighting, a midlife crisis, and the negative reception of nu metal at the time are what contributed to Linkin Park making a pop album. Now, thankfully, this era of poptimism is nowhere near as prevalent with the culture shift that's currently going on. In fact, Linkin Park recently hired Emily Armstrong as their new vocalist, and released an album last year titled From Zero. This one brings back the iconic Linkin Park sound, and while Emily Armstrong can't match the greatness of Chester Bennington, I think it's a pretty good album nonetheless. At the very least, this trend of rock bands going pop is largely over by now. That was such an obnoxious trend, and One More Light will forever be remembered as one of the more notable examples of that. All I gotta say is, I don't miss the late 2010s at all. Good f***ing riddance.